Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm started going off. He put down his cup and walked to the bridge of his ship, the Terra's Pride. The ship was not big or fancy, but it was home to him and his crew of 23. "People, what's happening?" Jake asked as he sat in his captain's chair. Lisa Hayes, his tactical officer, looked up from her screen. She had been with Jake for 5 years now, and he trusted her more than anyone else on the ship. "Captain, we have a big problem. A huge ship just appeared out of nowhere. It's 10 times bigger than us." Jake looked at the main screen. The alien ship was massive and dark, with sharp edges that looked like they could cut through space itself. Strange lights blinked along its sides, and it had weapons that looked like they could destroy a small moon. "Any idea who they are?" Jake asked. Danny Rodriguez, the chief engineer, shook his head. Danny was a short man with oil-stained hands who could fix anything that broke on the ship. "Never seen anything like it, Captain. But those weapons, they're pointing right at us." Amy Clark, the communications officer, suddenly looked up from her station. Amy was young and smart, and she could speak 12 different languages. "Captain, they're sending us a message. It's coming through on all frequencies." "Put it on the main screen," Jake said. The screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at an alien face. The creature had gray skin, red eyes, and a mouth full of sharp teeth. It wore a uniform covered in medals and strange symbols. Behind it, Jake could see other aliens working at control stations. "I am Admiral Zextar of the Caltharian Empire," the alien said. Its voice was deep and scary, like thunder before a storm. "You humans have made a terrible mistake. You have entered sacred Caltharian space without permission." Jake looked around at his crew. They were all staring at the screen with wide eyes. He could see they were scared, but they were trying not to show it. "Your species is young and foolish," Admiral Zextar continued. "You do not understand the power of the Caltharian Empire. We have conquered 17 worlds. We have destroyed armies and fleets. We have made entire civilizations bow before us." The alien leaned forward, and its red eyes seemed to glow brighter. "But we are not without mercy. We will give you one chance to save yourselves. All human ships must leave this sector of space immediately. You have 72 hours to comply." Jake scratched his chin. He looked at Lisa, then at Danny, then at Amy. They all looked back at him, waiting to see what he would do. "If you do not obey," the alien admiral said, "we will hunt down every human ship in this sector. We will destroy your colonies. We will turn your worlds into ash and dust. This is not a negotiation. This is a warning." The alien's image disappeared, leaving the bridge quiet, except for the hum of the ship's engines. For a moment, nobody said anything. Then Danny started to chuckle. Lisa put her hand over her mouth, but Jake could see her shoulders shaking. Amy tried to keep a straight face, but a smile was breaking through. Then Jake started laughing. Not a little laugh, but a big, loud laugh that filled the whole bridge. Soon all 4 of them were laughing so hard they could barely breathe. "Did you see his face?" Lisa gasped between laughs. "He looked like he was trying to scare children at a Halloween party. Sacred Caltharian space." Danny wiped tears from his eyes. "We've been mapping this sector for 6 months. There's nothing here but empty space and a few asteroids." Amy was still giggling. "He said they conquered 17 worlds. Captain, do you think he knows that humans have explored over 3,000 star systems?" Jake stood up and walked to the communication station. "Amy, open a channel back to that ship." "Yes, sir," Amy said, still smiling. The screen flickered again, and Admiral Zextar's face appeared. This time, the alien looked confused. He had probably expected the humans to be crying or begging for mercy. "Admiral Zextar, Jake said politely. "Thank you for the warning. We appreciate you taking the time to talk to us." The alien's red eyes narrowed. "You appreciate it? Do you understand what I just told you? Your species is in great danger." "Oh, we understand perfectly," Jake said. He was still smiling, which seemed to make the alien even more confused. "But we're going to have to politely decline your offer." "Decline?" The alien's voice got higher. This was not an offer. This was a command. "Well, Admiral," Jake said, "here's the thing. Before you go around making threats, you might want to do your homework first. You might want to learn a little bit about who you're talking to." The alien leaned back in his chair. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Jake said, "that you might want to ask yourself why 23 humans on a little exploration ship aren't scared of your big, scary fleet." Admiral Zexstar stared at him for a long moment. Jake could see the alien was thinking hard, trying to figure out what was going on. "You are bluffing," the alien finally said. "You are trying to trick me." "Maybe," Jake said. "Or maybe you should ask yourself why we're still here talking to you, instead of running away as fast as we can." The alien's face disappeared from the screen again. Lisa looked at Jake. "Captain, what do we do now?" Jake sat back down in his chair and picked up his coffee cup. "Now we wait. And we see what these Caltharians are really made of." "Should we call for backup?" Danny asked. Jake took a sip of his coffee and smiled. "Danny, I don't think we're going to need backup. But go ahead and send a message to Admiral Jackson. Tell him we've made first contact with a new species. Tell him they're interesting." Amy started typing on her keyboard. "What should I tell him about their threat?" "Tell him they seem to think they're in charge around here," Jake said. "I'm sure he'll find that as funny as we do." Outside the ship, the massive alien vessel hung in space like a dark storm cloud. But inside the Terra's Pride, the crew was still chuckling about the morning's entertainment. On the Caltharian homeworld of Zethkar, Supreme Commander Velthek sat in his war room looking at the reports from Admiral Zexstar. The room was dark and cold, with walls made of black stone and red lights that cast long shadows. Maps of conquered worlds covered every surface, and weapons from defeated enemies hung on the walls like trophies. Velthek was old, even for a Caltharian. He had lived for 300 years, and had spent most of that time fighting wars. His skin was darker then, most of his kind marked with scars from countless battles. He had personally led the conquest of 12 worlds, and had never met an enemy he could not defeat. "Tell me again," Velthek said to Agent Cryonex, who stood at attention beside his desk. The humans laughed. Cryonex was smaller than most Caltharians, with pale gray skin and quick, nervous movements. He was the Empire's best spy, and he had been studying humans for months. "Yes, Supreme Commander. Admiral Zexstar reports that when he delivered the ultimatum, the entire human crew began laughing. They acted as if the threat was some kind of joke." Velthek stood up and walked to a large window that looked out over the capital city. Below him, millions of Caltharians went about their daily lives, all of them safe because of the fear his empire struck into the hearts of their enemies. "In 300 years, Velthek said slowly, no species has ever laughed at a Caltharian ultimatum. The Zephyrians begged for mercy. The Cortani offered us their entire treasury. Even the proud Nexari warriors trembled when they saw our ships. The humans are different, Supreme Commander," Cryonex said. "My intelligence reports show strange behavior patterns. Their ships appear primitive, but they travel through space as if they own it. They have no visible weapons, yet they show no fear." Velthek turned back to his spy. "Show me everything you know about these humans." Cryonex activated a holographic display in the center of the room. Images of human ships appeared in the air, rotating slowly so Velthek could see them from all angles. These are typical human vessels, Cryonex explained. Simple designs, basic hull materials, no apparent weapon systems. Their largest ships are perhaps 1/10 the size of our smallest destroyer. Velfax studied the images carefully. The human ships looked fragile, like toys compared to the massive war machines of the Caltharian Empire. Their hulls were smooth and clean, without the spikes and armor plating that marked a proper warship. How many ships do they have? Velfax asked. Our scouts have identified approximately 2,000 human vessels scattered across 50 star systems. Cryonex replied. Most appear to be exploration or cargo ships. We have seen very few that could be classified as military vessels. 2,000 ships, Velfax mused. The Nexari had 5,000 ships when we conquered them, and they were much better armed than these humans appear to be. The display changed to show images of human colonies. Velfax saw cities with tall, gleaming buildings, farms that stretched to the horizon, and space stations that looked more like art than military installations. Their colonies show the same pattern, Cryonex continued. No visible defenses. No military installations, no orbital weapon platforms. It is as if they have never encountered a hostile force. Or, Velfax said quietly, as if they have never needed to worry about one. Cryonex looked confused. Supreme Commander? Nothing, Velfax said. Continue your report. The display showed human crew members going about their daily duties. Velfax watched as they worked, talked, and even played games during their off-duty hours. They looked relaxed and happy, not like people living under the threat of conquest. The human crew psychology is particularly strange, Cryonex said. They show no signs of military discipline. They joke during work hours. They question their superiors' orders, and they seem to view their duties as optional suggestions rather than commands. Yet their ships function perfectly, Velfax observed. Yes, Supreme Commander. Their ships are maintained to a standard higher than most of our own fleet. Their crews are obviously skilled, despite their casual behavior. Velfax walked back to his desk and picked up a datapad containing more detailed reports. He read about human exploration missions that had mapped hundreds of star systems, about their cargo ships that carried goods across vast distances, and about their research vessels that studied everything from stellar phenomena to alien plant life. They act like tourists, Velfax said, like beings who have never seen war. Far away on Earth, Admiral Pete Jackson sat in his office reading Captain Morrison's report. The office was comfortable and bright, with large windows that looked out over the Pacific Ocean. Earth's blue skies and white clouds were a sharp contrast to the dark war. Room on Zethkar. Admiral Jackson was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had been in charge of human defense for 20 years, but he had never had to fight a real war. Earth had been peaceful for so long that most people had forgotten what conflict looked like. He pressed a button on his desk, and Dr. Helen Carter entered the room. Dr. Carter was an expert on alien psychology, and she had been studying reports about the Caltharian Empire for years. Helen, Admiral Jackson said, what do you make of these Caltharians? Dr. Carter sat down across from his desk and opened her own datapad. They're a classic example of a conquest-oriented civilization. Pete, they use fear and superior technology to force other species into submission. It's worked for them 17 times, so they probably think it will work on us too. Any idea why they picked a fight with us? Probably because we look like easy targets, Dr. Carter said. Our ships don't look like warships. Our colonies aren't militarized, and our crews don't act like soldiers. To a species like the Caltharians, we must look like sheep waiting to be slaughtered. Admiral Jackson chuckled. If only they knew. The question is, Dr. Carter said, what do we do about it? If we reveal our true capabilities too quickly, we might start a panic among the other species in this sector. But if we don't respond strongly enough, the Caltharians might think we're actually weak. Admiral Jackson thought for a moment, then smiled. Let's let them make the first move. I'm curious to see what these galactic conquerors can actually do. He opened a communication channel to Captain Morrison. Jake, this is Admiral Jackson. How are you holding up out there? Captain Morrison's face appeared on his screen, and he was still smiling. Just fine, Admiral. Our Caltharian friends haven't made another move yet, but they're still hanging around like they're waiting for something. Any sign they're bringing reinforcements? Not yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do. That Admiral seemed pretty upset when we didn't fall down and worship him. Admiral Jackson laughed. Well, Jake, here are your orders. Have some fun with them. Let's see what they're really made of before we decide how to respond. Understood. Admiral, should I call for backup if things get interesting? Jake, Admiral Jackson said, you know as well as I do that you won't need backup. But if you want to put on a good show, feel free to call in some of the other ships in your sector. Back on Zethkar, Supreme Commander Velthek had made his decision. He called for Fleet Admiral Morteth, his most experienced commander. Morteth, Velthek said when the Admiral arrived, prepare a war fleet. 200 ships, including our best dreadnoughts. These humans need to learn what happens when they defy the Caltharian Empire. Fleet Admiral Morteth was surprised. 200 ships, Supreme Commander, for a species with only 2,000 vessels total. These humans are either very brave or very stupid, Velthok said. Either way, I want them to understand that the Caltharian Empire is not to be trifled with. Destroy their colonies, capture their ships, and bring me their leaders in chains. It will be done, Supreme Commander, Morteth said as the fleet prepared to leave. Neither the Caltharians nor the humans knew that this confrontation would change everything. The Caltharians thought they were about to add another conquest to their list. The humans were just curious to see what would happen next. Only time would tell who was right. 3 days later, the Caltharian war fleet arrived at the human colony of New Denver. 200 massive ships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their dark hulls blocking out the stars. Each ship was armed with enough firepower to level a city, and together they represented the most powerful military force the Caltharian Empire had ever assembled. Fleet Admiral Morteth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the destroyer of worlds, and looked at the peaceful human colony below. New Denver was a small farming world with only 500,000 people. Its orbital stations looked like glass flowers floating in space, beautiful but completely defenseless. Scan the system, Morteth ordered his tactical officer. I want to know the location of every human ship and every possible military installation. Lieutenant Kexival worked at his console for several minutes before looking up in confusion. Admiral, the scans show only one human ship in the entire system. One ship? Morteth walked over to look at the display. Where are their defenses? Where is their fleet? There are no orbital weapons platforms, no military installations, and no fleet, Kexival reported. Just that one ship. Morteth studied the image of the human vessel. It was small and battered, with cargo containers strapped to its hull, and what looked like farming equipment welded to its sides. The ship's name was painted on its hull in faded letters. Lucky Strike. It's a cargo ship, Morteth said in disbelief. They sent a cargo ship to face our entire fleet. On board the Lucky Strike, Captain Sam Turner was having the time of his life. Sam was a freight hauler who had been running cargo between human colonies for 15 years. He was a big man with calloused hands and a laugh that could be heard. 3 decks away. His ship was old and ugly, but it had never let him down. Boys, Sam said to his crew of 6, looks like we're about to become famous. His first mate, Tony Martinez, looked at the massive alien fleet surrounding them. Tony was young and usually nervous, but today he was grinning like he'd just won the lottery. "Captain, are you sure about this? That's a lot of ships." "Tony," Sam said, "remember what Admiral Jackson told us in his briefing. These aliens are bullies. They're used to everyone being afraid of them. Well, we're going to show them what happens when they mess with humans who aren't afraid." Pete Wilson, the ship's engineer, was checking his instruments. Pete was an old-timer who had been working on ships longer than Sam had been alive. "Captain, their weapons are targeting us. Plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, the works. But our shields should hold just fine." "Excellent," Sam said. "Amy, put me on all frequencies. I want everyone to hear this." Amy Rodriguez, the communications officer and Tony's sister, opened the channel. "You're live, Captain." The main screen flickered, and Fleet Admiral Mordeth's face appeared. The Caltharian looked angry and impatient, as if he couldn't believe he was wasting time talking to such a small ship. "Human vessel," Mordeth said. "You are completely surrounded. Your world is defenseless. Surrender immediately, and your deaths will be quick." Sam leaned back in his captain's chair and grinned. "Well, howdy there, Admiral. Nice fleet you got there. Must have cost a pretty penny to build all those ships." Mordeth blinked his red eyes in confusion. "Did you not hear what I said? Surrender, or we will destroy you." "Oh, I heard you just fine," Sam said. "But here's the thing, Admiral. You want this colony? You want to hurt these good people down there? Well, you're going to have to go through me first." "You are one small ship against 200 of ours," Mordeth said. "This is madness." "Maybe," Sam said. "But here in human space, we have a saying. Come and take it." Sam nodded to Amy, who started broadcasting music across all frequencies. It was an old Earth song about standing your ground and never backing down. The music filled the space around both fleets, cheerful and defiant. "Fire all weapons," Mordeth ordered. "Destroy that ship." The Caltharian fleet opened fire. Plasma bolts and quantum torpedoes streaked through space, all aimed at the tiny human cargo ship. The weapons were powerful enough to vaporize an asteroid, and there were hundreds of them. But something amazing happened. As the alien weapons struck the lucky strike, they simply bounced off. The ship's shields flared bright blue for a moment, then returned to normal. The cargo ship sat in the middle of the weapon's fire, completely undamaged. "Impossible," Mordeth whispered. Sam's voice came over the communication channel, and he was laughing. "Is that the best you got, Admiral? My little niece throws harder." "Snowballs than that." Mordeth turned to his weapons officer. "Increase power to all weapons. Maximum firepower." The second wave of weapons fire was even more intense. The space around the lucky strike lit up like a small sun as hundreds of energy weapons struck its shields. But again, the human ship emerged completely undamaged. "Well, that was fun," Sam said. "Now let me show you how we do things in human space." The lucky strike began to move. But it didn't run away like the Caltharians expected. Instead, it started weaving through the weapon's fire like it was dancing. The ship spun and twisted, avoiding some shots and letting others bounce harmlessly off its shields. "Yahoo!" Sam's voice echoed across the communication channels. "This is better than riding bulls back on Earth." Tony was whooping with joy as he piloted the ship through the alien weapon's fire. "Captain, this is incredible. It's like they're shooting at us with water guns." Pete was monitoring the ship's systems and shaking his head in amazement. "Shields are holding at 98%. These aliens couldn't hurt us if they had 1,000 years to try." The Caltharian fleet kept firing, but nothing they did could even scratch the human ship. Worse, the humans seemed to be enjoying themselves. Sam was providing commentary like he was watching a sports game. Tony was performing impossible maneuvers that made the alien weapons look slow and clumsy, and the entire crew was laughing and cheering. "Admiral," Lieutenant Kexival said quietly, "our weapons are having no effect. Their shields are unlike anything we've ever encountered." Mordith stared at the display, showing the lucky strike dancing through their weapons' fire. "How is this possible? It's just a cargo ship." "Maybe it's not just a cargo ship," Kexival suggested. On the lucky strike, Sam was checking his watch. "Boys, I think we've had enough fun for now. Amy, send a message to Admiral Jackson. Tell him our friends here have some impressive light shows, but they're not much good at actual fighting." "Message sent, Captain," Amy replied. "Good," Sam said. "Now let's see how long it takes them to figure out they're in way over their heads." The Caltharian fleet continued firing for another hour, wasting thousands of rounds of ammunition and accomplishing nothing. The lucky strike continued its dance through space, completely undamaged and apparently having the time of its life. Finally, Mordith ordered his fleet to stop firing. "Cease fire. All ships, cease fire." The space around the lucky strike became quiet again, except for the music that was still playing. "Thank you kindly," Sam said over the comm. "That was quite a workout. You boys know how to put on a show. I'll give you that." Mordith was breathing heavily, his red eyes wide with shock and confusion. "What are you?" he asked. "Just a freight hauler, Admiral," Sam replied. "Just a simple man trying to move cargo from one place to another. But you know what? I think my friends might want to have a word with you." "Friends?" Mordith asked. Sam smiled, and his smile was not friendly anymore. "Oh, yes, Admiral. You see, I sent word to my people about an hour ago. Told them there were some visitors here who didn't know how to mind their manners. And you know what? They're on their way." Mordith looked at his scanner operator. "Are there any other ships approaching?" The operator studied his screens carefully, then shook his head. "No, Admiral. Space is empty except for us and the human ship." "You're bluffing," Mordith said to Sam. "Maybe," Sam replied. "Or maybe you should ask yourself why a cargo ship captain isn't afraid of 200 warships." As if on cue, space around the Caltharian fleet began to shimmer. The stars seemed to bend and twist, and suddenly the empty space wasn't empty anymore. 50 human ships appeared out of nowhere, surrounding the Caltharian fleet completely. These ships were sleek and beautiful, with hulls that seemed to absorb light itself. They had appeared without any warning, as if they had been invisible until they chose to reveal themselves. "Holy stars," Lieutenant Kexival whispered. "Where did they come from?" The largest of the human ships, a vessel twice the size of Mordith's flagship, moved closer. Its hull was pure white with silver trim, and it looked more like a work of art than a warship. A new voice came over the communication channel. It belonged to a human woman, and she sounded amused. "Good afternoon, Admiral Mordith. My name is Admiral Kate Sullivan of the Human Defense Fleet. I believe you've been having some trouble with one of our cargo ships." Fleet Admiral Mordith stared at the 50 human ships that had appeared around his fleet like ghosts becoming solid. His tactical displays were going crazy, showing readings that made no sense. The human ships had no visible weapons, no armor plating, and no obvious defense systems. Yet something deep in his warrior's instincts told him he was in terrible danger. "Admiral Sullivan," Mordith said, trying to keep his voice steady, "your ship appeared from nowhere. How is this possible?" Admiral Kate Sullivan's image appeared on his main screen. She was a middle-aged human woman with short brown hair and calm blue eyes. She wore a simple uniform with no medals or decorations, and she looked more like a teacher than a military commander. "Oh, that's easy to explain," Kate said with a smile. "We've been here the whole time. We just didn't want you to see us until We were ready. Impossible, Morteth said. Our sensors are the most advanced in the galaxy. No ship can hide from Caltharian detection systems. Admiral, Kate said gently, I think you might want to check your facts on that. You see, we've been watching your empire for quite some time now. We know all about your conquest of 17 worlds. We know about your weapons, your ships, and your tactics. On the Lucky Strike, Captain Sam Turner was grinning as he listened to the conversation. Hey, Admiral Sullivan, he called out. These boys sure do like their big scary speeches. They spent an hour shooting at me with everything they had. And how did that work out for them, Sam? Kate asked. Sam chuckled. About as well as you'd expect. Didn't even scratch the paint. Lieutenant Kexival turned to Mortith with panic in his red eyes. Admiral, I'm reading energy signatures from the human ships that are off the scale. Their power output is 10 times greater than our most advanced dreadnought. 10 times? Mortith whispered. Admiral Mortith, Kate said, I think it's time we had an honest conversation. May I ask you a question? Mortith nodded slowly. When your scouts first observed human ships, what did they report? They said your ships appeared primitive, Mortith replied. No visible weapons, simple designs, weak construction. And based on that, you decided we would be easy to conquer? Yes. Kate nodded thoughtfully. That's understandable. From your perspective, we probably do look primitive. But let me ask you something else. In all your conquests, have you ever encountered a species that didn't fight back when threatened? Mortith thought about it. No. Every species we've conquered has tried to resist us, even when they knew they couldn't win. So when Captain Turner here faced your entire fleet alone, and when our exploration ship laughed at your ultimatum, didn't that seem strange to you? We thought you were insane, Mortith said quietly. Or, Kate said, maybe we knew something you didn't. She pressed a button on her command console, and suddenly the space around both fleets filled with holographic displays. The images showed star charts, technical diagrams, and historical records that made Morteth's blood run cold. Admiral, these are maps of human space, Kate explained. As you can see, we've explored and colonized over 3,000 star systems. We've made contact with over 200 alien species. We've been traveling between the stars for longer than your entire civilization has existed. The displays showed human ships moving through space with impossible speed, human colonies on worlds that should have been uninhabitable, and human technology that seemed to defy the laws of physics. This can't be real, Mortith said. If humans were this advanced, why do your ships look so simple? Kate smiled. Because we learned long ago that the most advanced technology looks simple to those who understand it. A hammer looks primitive to someone who has never built anything, but it's still the best tool for driving nails. She gestured to the Lucky Strike, which was still floating peacefully among the Caltharian warships. Sam's cargo ship looks primitive. To you because you're thinking like a warrior. You see weapons and armor and think that makes a ship powerful. But Sam's ship can travel faster than your fastest scout, carry more cargo than your largest transport, and defend itself against anything. You can throw at it. How? Mortith asked. Because we built it that way, Kate said simply. Admiral, your civilization has spent centuries perfecting the art of war. You've built bigger guns, thicker armor, and more frightening ships. But we've spent our time perfecting the art of engineering. The holographic displays changed to show the inside of human ships. Mortith saw technology that was beyond his understanding, devices that seemed to bend space and time, energy sources that could power entire worlds, and control systems that responded to thought rather than touch. Your weapons couldn't hurt Sam's ship because his shields are made of folded spacetime, Kate explained. Your sensors couldn't detect us because we were hiding in a parallel dimension. Your ships are impressive, but they're based on technology that we mastered and moved beyond centuries ago. Dr. Ben Parker, the human fleet's science officer, appeared on another part of the screen. He was a young man with messy hair and glasses, and he looked excited to be talking about technology. "It's actually quite fascinating," Ben said. "Your plasma weapons work by exciting matter to extremely high temperatures. But our shields work by redirecting energy into pocket dimensions where it can't affect our ship. It's like trying to hurt someone by throwing water at their reflection." Mortith felt like the universe was spinning around him. Everything he thought he knew about power and conquest was crumbling. "If you're so advanced," he said desperately, "why haven't you conquered the galaxy yourselves?" Kate's expression became serious. "Because we learned something that your empire never did, Admiral. We learned that conquest doesn't make you stronger. It makes you weaker." She gestured to another set of holographic displays that showed thriving alien civilizations. "These are some of the species we've helped over the past few centuries. The Zephyrians, who your empire conquered 50 years ago. We evacuated their entire population before you arrived. They're living happily on 3 new worlds that we helped them colonize." "Impossible," Mortith breathed. "The Cortani, who you conquered 30 years ago. We gave them new technology and helped them establish a hidden colony ship program. Most of their people escaped before you even knew they were gone." Ben Parker nodded enthusiastically. "It's actually much more efficient to help civilizations develop on their own than to try to control them. Diversity of thought leads to better innovation, which benefits everyone." Kate continued, "Admiral, your empire thinks it has conquered 17 worlds. But what you've actually conquered are the empty shells that species left behind when they moved on to better things." Mortith looked at his tactical officer, who was staring at the human displays with his mouth open. "Is this possible?" Mortith asked. "Admiral," Kexival said quietly, "if even half of what they're showing us is true, then we're not just outgunned. We're so far behind them that we might as well be throwing rocks at starships." Kate's voice became gentle, almost motherly. "Admiral Mortith, I want you to understand something. We're not angry with you. We're not even particularly surprised by your behavior. Species like yours develop all the time. Civilizations that discover space travel and decide that means they should rule the galaxy. But you could destroy us." Mortith said. "Easily," Kate admitted. "But what would be the point? You're not evil, Admiral. You're just young. Your entire civilization is going through a phase that most spacefaring species experience. The need to prove yourselves by conquering. Others," Sam Turner's voice came over the comm again. "Admiral, if I may ask, what do your people actually want? I mean, what do they hope to gain from all this conquering?" Mortith thought about it. Security, resources, respect. "Well," Sam said, "what if I told you that you could have all 3? Of those things without firing a single shot?" Kate nodded. "Sam's right, Admiral. We can offer your people security through alliance rather than conquest. We can share resources that are far more valuable than anything you could take by force. And respect? Real respect comes from what you build, not what you destroy." Dr. Parker pulled up another display showing Caltherian technology. "Your ships are actually quite impressive for your current level of development. With some guidance, your people could become master engineers rather than just warriors." "You would help us?" Mortith asked in disbelief. "Why wouldn't we?" Kate replied. "A galaxy full of friends is much more interesting than a galaxy full of conquered slaves. We've learned that the best way to make ourselves safer is to make everyone else stronger and happier." Mortith looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all staring at the displays, seeing their entire worldview crumble and rebuild itself in the space of a few minutes. "Admiral, Lieutenant Kexival said quietly. What if they're lying? What if this is some kind of trick? Kate heard him and smiled. Lieutenant, that's a fair question. Ben, show them the Nexari files. The displays changed to show the proud warrior race that the Caltharians had conquered just 5 years earlier. But instead of the defeated, enslaved people that Mordeth expected to see, the images showed Nexari citizens living in beautiful cities on worlds that looked like paradise. The Nexari were a lot like you, Kate explained. Proud warriors who thought strength came from conquest. We helped them evacuate their homeworld before you arrived, and now they... 2 hours later, Supreme Commander Velthok's personal ship dropped out of hyperspace near the human colony of New Denver. He had come expecting to find his fleet collecting tribute from conquered humans. Instead, he found his entire war fleet sitting quietly in space while human ships moved freely among them. Velthok's ship was the largest and most fearsome vessel in the Caltharian Empire. The Eternal Conquest was 5 miles long and bristled with weapons that could crack a planet's crust. Its black hull was decorated with the symbols of every world the Caltharians had conquered, and its very presence usually sent enemy fleets fleeing in terror. But as Velthok looked at the peaceful scene before him, he felt something he had never experienced in 300 years of conquest: confusion. Fleet Admiral Mordeth, Velthok said over the communication channel, report your status immediately. Mordeth's image appeared on his screen, and Velthok was shocked by what he saw. His most trusted commander looked tired, thoughtful, and somehow older than he had just days before. Supreme Commander, Mordeth said carefully, the situation has become complicated. Complicated? Velthok's voice rose. I see your entire fleet intact and the human colony undamaged. Why have you not carried out your orders? Because, Supreme Commander, our orders were based on incorrect information. Before Velthok could respond, another voice cut into the communication channel. It belonged to Captain Sam Turner of the Lucky Strike. Howdy there, Supreme Commander, Sam said cheerfully. Welcome to New Denver. Pretty little place, isn't it? Velthok stared at the small cargo ship that was floating casually between his largest warships. Who dares to address the Supreme Commander of the Caltharian Empire without permission? Oh, just a freight hauler, Sam replied. But don't worry, Supreme Commander. Admiral Sullivan wants to have a word with you. I think you two have a lot to talk about. Admiral Kate Sullivan's ship, the Constitution, moved closer to the Eternal Conquest. Velthok studied the human vessel with his experienced warrior's eye, looking for weaknesses and weapon systems. What he saw made no sense. The ship looked more like a work of art than a weapon of war. Supreme Commander Velthok, Kate's voice came over the comm. I'm Admiral Kate Sullivan of the Human Defense Fleet. Thank you for coming. I know this situation must be confusing for you. Admiral Sullivan, Velthok said, trying to keep his voice steady. I demand an explanation. Why has my fleet not completed its mission? Because your fleet has learned something important, Kate replied. Captain Turner, would you mind giving the Supreme Commander a demonstration? Happy to, Sam said. What happened next made Velthok question everything he thought he knew about power. The little cargo ship Lucky Strike suddenly accelerated to speeds that should have been impossible. It moved through space like a fish through water, performing maneuvers that violated everything Velthok knew about physics. Then, Sam did something that made Velthok's blood freeze. The cargo ship simply vanished, reappearing instantly on the other side of the Caltharian fleet. Dimensional jumping, Dr. Ben Parker's voice explained over the comm. We can move through folded space-time. Very useful for cargo delivery. Impossible, Velthok whispered. Supreme Commander, Admiral Sullivan said gently, would you be willing to come aboard my ship for a face-to-face meeting? I think there are some things you need to see. Velfek's first instinct was to refuse. But something in the human admiral's voice made him pause. There was no threat, no arrogance, no hint of the triumph that a victor usually showed to the defeated. You guarantee my safety? Velfek asked. You have my word, Kate replied. In fact, you can bring as many guards as you want. Though I should warn you, our coffee is quite strong. It might keep you awake. An hour later, Velfek found himself sitting in a comfortable conference room aboard the Constitution. The room was bright and warm, with large windows that looked out at the stars. It was nothing like the dark, imposing war rooms of Caltharian ships. Across from him sat Admiral Sullivan, Dr. Parker, and Captain Morrison from the Terra's Pride, who had arrived just in time for the meeting. They were drinking something called coffee from simple ceramic cups, and they looked as relaxed as if they were having a picnic. Supreme Commander, Kate began, before we start, I want you to know that we're not your enemies. We're not interested in conquering your empire or harming your people. Then what do you want? Velfek asked. To offer you a choice, Captain Morrison said. The same choice we've offered to dozens of other species over the years. Dr. Parker activated a holographic display in the center of the table. Supreme Commander, what I'm about to show you might be difficult to accept. These are the real locations of the 17 species your empire believes it has conquered. The display showed thriving alien civilizations scattered across the galaxy. Cities that gleamed like jewels, space stations that looked like floating, gardens and ships that moved through space with the same impossible grace as Sam Turner's cargo vessel. The Zephyrians, Dr. Parker explained, are now master terraformers. They've turned 12 barren worlds into paradises. The Cortani have become incredible artists. Their sculptures are famous throughout human space. The Nexari are our partners in developing new starship technologies. All of them are alive? Velfek asked in a whisper. All of them, Kate confirmed. And all of them are happier and more prosperous than they ever were before your empire found them. But our worlds, Velfek said, are colonies. We rule 17 systems. Captain Morrison leaned forward. Supreme Commander, when was the last time you personally visited one of those conquered worlds? Velfek thought about it. Administrative duties keep me busy. I rely on reports from my governors. Your governors have been filing false reports. For decades, Dr. Parker said gently. The worlds you think you control are empty. We evacuated the populations and left behind sophisticated holographic systems that show your governors what they expect to see. The display changed to show Caltharian administrative centers on supposedly conquered worlds. Velfek watched in shock as the images revealed that his governors were ruling over elaborate illusions, giving orders to holographic projections, and collecting tribute from automated systems. Why? Velfek asked. Why would you do this? Because, Kate said, we hoped that eventually your people would grow tired of conquest and start looking for something better. And because, Dr. Parker added excitedly, your culture has so much potential. Your warrior traditions have produced some incredible innovations in engineering and metallurgy. The Nexari tell us that Caltharian meditation techniques have helped them design better starships. Captain Morrison smiled. Plus, your people are natural explorers. Some of the bravest pilots we've ever met have been former Caltharian warriors, who decided they'd rather discover new worlds than conquer them. Velfek stood up and walked to the window, looking out at his fleet. For 300 years, he had built his entire identity around being the supreme commander of a conquering empire. Now he was learning that his empire was built on illusions, and that the species he thought he had defeated were actually thriving under human protection. What happens to me? He asked quietly. What happens to my people if we accept your offer? That's up to you, Kate replied. We're not interested in ruling you or changing your culture. We just want you to redirect your energy toward building things instead of destroying them. Your people are natural leaders, Dr. Parker said. The galaxy needs good leaders, Supreme Commander. There are hundreds of species out there who could benefit from Caltharian guidance and protection. Legitimate protection, Captain Morrison clarified. Not conquest. There's a difference. Velthek turned back to face them. And if I refuse? If I choose to continue our current path? Kate's expression became serious. Then we'll have to stop. You. Not because we want to, but because we won't let you hurt innocent people. How many ships do you have? Velthek asked. Enough, Kate said simply. Dr. Parker pulled up another display. Supreme Commander, human space contains over 3,000 star systems. We have allies and partners throughout this galaxy and several others. We've been exploring space for longer than your civilization has existed. But more importantly, Captain Morrison added, we've learned how to build things that last. Your empire has been conquering for centuries. But what have you actually built? What legacy will you leave behind? Velthek thought about his homeworld, about his people, about the endless cycle of war and conquest that had defined Caltharian culture for generations. For the first time in his life, he found himself wondering if there might be a better way. If I agree to your proposal, he said. Slowly, what would you expect from us? First, Kate said, stop the conquests. No more threats, no more ultimatums, no more invasions. Second, Dr. Parker added, help us relocate any remaining populations from worlds you actually control. Make sure everyone who wants to leave can do so safely. Third, Captain Morrison said, start thinking about what you want to build instead of what you want to conquer. What could the Caltharian Empire become if you put all that energy into exploration and development instead of war? Velthek was quiet for a long time. Finally, he looked up at the three humans. What guarantee do I have that you won't betray us once we're no longer a threat? Kaptai,